Welcome to This Week in Coworking, where industry leaders get succinct, actionable insights.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the This Week in Coworking podcast feed. I am your host, Hector Kolonas, and I am joined by the amazing Megan Brown today. Megan, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Now, folks who may be listening definitely know who Megan is, but for folks who may be new to the podcast or maybe not so into the co-working scene in the US for the last couple of years, Megan, tell us a little bit about your history and how it relates to co-working.
Yeah. So I was introduced to the co-working industry, the even idea of co-working from Jamie Russo. Her and I worked in a previous life together at a different organization. And that's about when she was starting to dive into that. And so because of the nature of work that I did for that organization, which was event planning and logistical support, as she was opening up her first space in Chicago, she recruited all of her friends and coworkers to kind of help, do a little video promo or come just check out the space. I actually helped run some of her events. I tell a funny story all the time about when she was finally stepping away from that job to go full-time into co-working. I literally had to ask her, what is co-working? I don't know that concept at all. So she was definitely my first introduction and sort of the all things of knower of all things in co-working for all of my tenure with the co-working experience. So cherish that woman. So a few years after she left, she got connected with the Global Workspace Association, which is where anybody that's listening to this knows me from, most likely. It just kind of happened about the time I was ready to leave that previous organization. She was looking for some association management support. I came in. I think my total tenure was about 6 years, a little break in between, but wrapped up with starting off association manager, going through a few titles, ending as executive director last December-ish. So, but still follow all the things, co-working, still have friends in the industry.
And we
Big
still
fan.
classify you and call you a friend, so you're definitely not getting away from co-working that easily. That's kind of why I roped you in. You wrote a blog post or a LinkedIn post fairly recently talking about something that really excites you. But before we dig into that and how it impacts co-working, where are you now? What are you doing? What's important to Megan?
Yeah. So I've been living in Northwest Arkansas. So I got connected with GWA in my Chicago days. I've been living in the Northwest Arkansas region that I think is most notable around the country now, primarily maybe through either Bentonville or through our university in Fayetteville. Basically a 2-county area, approximately 600,000 in population, made up of 31 municipalities. We're really kind of unique spot in that aspect, but really in the heart of the Ozarks. So we've got that perfect blend of kind of small urbanism that's growing very quickly, surrounded by beautiful nature, hills, waterfalls, all that thing. It's really a very idyllic place to live personally. I'm now full-time in director of operations mode for our local chapter of the Urban Land Institute, which for those that you aren't familiar is a nearly 90-year-old global organization that's just focused on the built environment as a whole and making it the best it can possibly be by bringing in all of the players from different industries and backgrounds to help support the conversations that we need to be having around housing, transportation, infrastructure, engineering, all of those things. So yeah, that's what takes up my day-to-day now. Dabble a little bit in some missing middle development, which I know is part of what we're talking about too, building some stuff. But yeah, it's exciting times.
That sounds fascinating. And I mean, it's just so interesting to hear about organizations that are like 90 years old, given that, this week co-working is like, hey, we're 20. And it's like, that's nothing. Like we've got a lot of work to do. Let's keep shipping. But you did bring up a topic, and that is the missing middle. So for folks who haven't read your piece or maybe aren't so involved with the kind of projects that you guys work on, what is it? What is the missing middle, and why should people care?
Yeah. So the missing middle at its broadest terminology is basically any housing development that is created between a single family home and a massive apartment complex. Over the course of history, especially as the automobile was created and we started to expand further west and we're able to, there's a lot of factors. You have a 30-year mortgage, all these opportunities to have more accessibility to housing, more space for housing. We really started to adopt a lot more of the Euclidean zoning policies that were really focused on single family homes with a large yard. And that was it. And for a while that worked, arguably worked. But then you really, and where we, part of the crisis that we've seen with the housing is that not everybody wants that, first and foremost. And it's very expensive. It's not attainable. You have households that are not designed for the 3-bed, 2-bath house that's 2,000 square feet plus. We're starting to see more of this, okay, with a 500 square foot space. And so if we're not producing that product and we're sort of forcing people into either this one solid product or this small, massive apartment complex where, depending on how it's built and designed, may not have that community aspect that folks desire, what is that in the middle? So anything from a duplex to, I mean, like could still be a 40-unit apartment building, however it's designed and developed. But at its core is just, what is that missing middle of housing that provides choice and opportunity for different interests in housing?
Yeah, I mean, as someone who's moved to America fairly recently, I can totally see that gap, right? Especially being here on the East Coast, living in Jersey City, overlooking kind of Manhattan. And you've got, as you say, on the one hand, you've got like your brownstones. On the other side, you've got these huge apartment buildings that you can't buy in anyway. So what is that middle piece? So that I'm very, very intrigued by this all.
Well, and I think that's when I first started working with ULI. That was one of the things that I grew up a Midwest girl, grew up outside of Kansas City. Of course, big chunk of my adult life in Chicago. And I say Kansas City, it was really a small farm town. I did not grow up in a super urbanized area, but I had this draw, and that's sort of what led to my post that I made. But not even understanding the history of our development patterns as a country. I mean, you can look an aerial view of a map and look at the East Coast versus the West Coast. And a lot of the reason that LA wasn't developed as tight-knit and walkable as the East Coast is because you had the automobile and you didn't have to. And so you look at those towns, I mean, the big ones, New York, Boston, but you can get to like the Savannahs and the Charleston and see not only was there the church next to the school, next to the market, next to the park, next to the ocean, wherever. But housing was just naturally built in to fit that. It had to be close enough to walk to everything of housing and the development.
I mean, in your post, you did actually mention that there was something about Chicago that really like made your love for urbanism blossom. Tell us a little bit about that. What did you see in Chicago that lit that flare?
Well, what's funny is I don't think I even saw it or knew that I was seeing it. My business partner and executive director here, Wes Craiglow, likes to sometimes claim that he helped create an urbanist out of me. He made me an urbanist. And I always argue I was, and I just didn't know. And that's the gist of the post I made is I had just come back from a trip to Chicago. And I've gone back pretty much every year since I've lived down here. But the more I immerse myself in this conversation, the more I'm around people that are in the sciencey side of it, like why you design a building this way and why you have this amount of spacing and why you do the staircase and why you do the exterior design a certain way. I started paying attention more. And for a lot of people, it's more of a soul connection of a tree-lined street with people just sitting out on their front stoops, talking to each other, pushing their baby in a stroller down to the market and then going back home. Just that kind of feel of it. Going back this time, just realizing, a lot of the beautiful neighborhoods too they don't all look alike. They're not all brick townhomes. It could have like a little small single family home in between, could have a little fourplex, could have a 10-plex unit and then another single family. It's just, that's the epitome of missing middle. However it fits that person's need, however it fits in the street, how the design looks, like it just was kind of naturally occurring back then. So, and that was, anyway, that was the exciting part of it. So before I knew the term missing middle, before I knew about smart growth and how to grow a city in a smart manner, I just knew that I loved urbanism. So.
Well, I'm glad you found your calling, and I'm glad it was outside of co-working, because this is a bigger conversation, it's a bigger story. But I do believe that co-working plays a part of that. You mentioned walkability. We've had so much news over the last couple of years where people, they want to go and meet their colleagues, but they don't necessarily want to get in a car or transit to get to a specific place every single day of the week. And so with building these cities and these homes, where does co-working fit in the puzzle from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think when you think about, there's a term, and actually I was researching this book a few weeks ago because we're still kind of honing in some keynote speakers for our big event that we host in November. And I got kind of drawn into the book, The 15-Minute City, where there's just everything that you would need is within 15-minute radius. And I think there's that idea of, especially those that are not wanting to sit in a car. I mean, we still have it here. People have to maybe live in Fayetteville and drive to Walmart for work and there's traffic. But that desire to be able to have a space where you can just walk out, walk down the same idea of I have a place where I live in a part of Northwest Arkansas called downtown Rogers, and got my girls back in the house right now. As soon as we're done, we're going to walk down to get their hair appointments done. It's right next to one of my favorite bars in town, which is around the corner from my favorite restaurant, which I don't have a co-working space here. In fact, I had to drive to one of my favorite spaces that is like a 25-minute drive from here because that's the only opportunity I have. If I had that, I would have a membership here and be walking. So it's the same idea as fitting that need of walking to food, walking to any community space, walking to your office. I think that's a huge, huge desirable component in the walkability of a neighborhood.
Yeah. And I mean, you brought up a very valid point a little bit earlier with the houses necessarily don't need to be so big, which means the opportunity to have a home office is, it's being traded for something else. Maybe we want to have
Yeah.
a room for your Peloton instead of an office, but get somewhere and work somewhere. And often it's the coffee shop or another third place. But it's really interesting to see how co-working is going to fit into that. From the kind of stories that I've been looking at, we've got a huge surge in what's essentially being called local work clubs. So not co-working per se, not a full-time membership, not a fixed desk or an office, but somewhere where you pay a monthly fee of some sort. Normally, I think it's starting around $90, $99, and you kind of go in, and when you're in the area, you can drop in, you can work, you can meet people, but it's not as rigid as co-working. And I'm wondering, as the missing middle gets more noticed and more appreciated,
Yeah.
will we see a divergence in the types of products or the types of co-working spaces that exist?
That's interesting. I would imagine so. As you were describing that exact thing, it's not exactly a club, but I'll give you a good example of, we have a coffee shop brand that is located in, actually their headquarters, it's right around the corner from me, Onyx Coffee. They were just ranked number 2 in the world, number 1 in the US. Look them up. It's a big deal. They're based here. They have, I think, 5 locations. They're about to open one on the new Walmart campus. But one of their most recent, I think it's their newest opening, is in a downtown walkable community called Downtown Springdale. Right now has no other office meeting space open to people. They have taken it not quite to the club level, but a notch level of just working from a coffee shop, because I think they are seeing the need and the draw to bring in more people. They just have it's a little more enclosed in a loft, but it's kind of an open room area that they've got cubbies built in and a big open table in the middle. Still not the most conducive working environment, but it's a need that they saw that wasn't being met in this walkable downtown, where a lot of missing middle housing is being filled in, small apartment complexes, I think there's a 6-unit plex opening right around the corner. They're fulfilling a need. That place is busy. That place is talked about in our area and in our conversations. So yeah, I think there's a need, and I think it'll start, like any business, adapting to that community. And I don't know how much, again, I've been out of the conversations of co-working for a little bit, but I don't know how much it would need to adapt, that sense of that community that's drawn in from co-working in those private offices. I know a lot of places are shifting. It's a smaller footprint. I don't know, but that could be easily incorporated to like a mixed use first floor, 2-story kind of development in a perfect little walkable neighborhood.
Definitely. I'm just going to take an example from here in Jersey City. So there's a developer called Silverman here. They're known for creating what they call villages. So it is a slightly larger, like, multifamily building. I think it's around 30 units.
Okay.
But their whole basement is normally parking and some sort of logistics thing. Ground floor is always retail, but retail is designed for what the people in the building need. So we're talking like pediatricians, dog groomers, hair salons, schools, like these kind of things on the kind of retail level. And then the first floor is almost always their own co-working brand, which is fully managed, fully staffed. And then it's multifamily above that. So they've really created this feel. They own a bunch of buildings, so they get to do the same thing and then cross-pollinate the retail stuff, which is just such a good idea. You can totally see the co-working spaces of the future not having to be kind of standalone, being dropped into these projects. But there's also this huge trend of lightly staffed co-working spaces where I'm sure from the early days when you came in to run ops at the co-working space, there was a lot of manual processes. A lot of that is automated or being automated in such a way that the human's just there to do the human things. We're seeing this idea of one manager managing 3 to 5 spaces. So they're roaming pretty much all day, especially in a walkable downtown. They don't need to be sitting behind a desk. They can be going around, doing tours, going for lunches, meeting partners, building partnerships, getting yoga passes for the members. All these things that really tie co-working into the community, but don't necessarily need someone to sit at a computer to run. I'm very, very excited for the future of that and where it combines with the work that you all are doing.
Yeah, I'll look up that. You have to send me the link to that place. I'd like to look into it some more. Yeah.
Or just come down to Jersey City and visit.
Okay,
Anytime.
done. Deal.
Perfect. So in your work today at ULI, you get to collaborate with all kinds of leaders, different types of groups, local placemakers, people who are creating beautiful, walkable, and community-focused things. What examples should people check out if they're really interested in what is happening in this missing?
So examples like nationwide developments or what's okay.
Anything that you think, like anyone who's maybe hearing Missing Middle for the first time, where should they start? Where's some
Interesting.
great examples of this being done?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many areas. I'm way more familiar with our local organizations. I'll tell you one, they're not directly affiliated with ULI, but their executive director is based here in Northwest Arkansas, and she is kind of known as the educator of the Joe Schmo wanting to be a developer in the missing middle conversation. Her name is Allie Quinlan, and she runs an organization called the Incremental Development Alliance, IncDev for short. They focus on teaching people that aren't brand new to development or maybe done a few projects that just kind of need their hand held from the beginning to the end of the project, literally to the end of like, they help, I don't know if it's a full co-sign on loans, but they'll help to get you to the financing piece and then create this community that helps support you. But they have members and facilitators of their programming all across the country. And I'll tell you also the gentleman who's sort of known as coining the term missing middle. Again, he came way after all of the developments that you see throughout parts of America, but his name's Dan Perolic with an organization called Opticos. And he wrote the book Missing Middle. There's beautiful pictures in there of like kind of the trajectory of what missing middle could look like. So there's examples all over the board. I think one thing to keep in mind, I think sometimes even the term urbanism and in that realm, missing middle can get tied in, sort of can have a negative connotation for those that don't necessarily want to live in the super close quarters or are afraid of, or they've seen the sticker price of certain, or they think that's what they think it's what it is. That is not necessarily the case. It's not necessarily advocating for everywhere to be a certain type of housing. The missing middle makes a lot of it. And when it comes to the affordability aspect, I think I sent you a link ahead of time. I've been really diving into this case study in Portland. The city of Portland did a zoning reform. The Residential Infill Project, RIP, was their acronym, where they permitted over 1,400 accessory dwelling units. So for those that don't know that fancy of a term, that's as simple as like an in-law suite on your property. That's a missing. It's just you can bring you income if you want to rent it out, short-term, long-term. And they've been seeing huge results on the affordability of housing across the board and their drop-in rate of homelessness in the area too, because of just allowing this choice to be provided, which then affects so many things from cost to livability to, yeah. Oh, pause a second.
Megan is awesome. No, I won't do that to you. So, I mean, that's really interesting. I'm definitely going to put those links to all the organizations and the report in the show notes, so definitely check that out. My question to you before we hop out and let you get back to the beautiful walk you're about to go on, who from co-working or around co-working would you love to work with more? Like if there's anyone who listened to this and they're really interested, who are they, who you're trying to reach, and how can they find you?
Oh, well, anybody, I can for sure share my contact information. I'm megan.brown@uli.org. We're always interested. And there's ULI chapters, 53 of us across the country. So more than likely there's one within a short distance of you if you want to get plugged in and learn some more. I'll do a little plug, hopefully he doesn't mind, but there's a local brand. So former, he was on the board advisory where I know content committee member for the GWA conference, Ben Vondrelli, who runs the Root space. He has some locations in Tulsa. That's actually the space that I work out of. So I'm trying to convince him to open locations that are super convenient for me in a walkability area. So maybe this will be that nudge to help him get across the board. But really, I'd be interested in anybody that's just interested in connecting with developers that are doing projects that might allow for co-working spaces and incorporating missing middle. I know we've got some major developers here that have either integrated an element of co-working into their space. Even this development I'm sitting in now, they have more of a workspace co-working. It's not manned at all. But then we have some that are doing projects, they call it traditional neighborhood development, where they're just kind of creating a neighborhood out of nowhere. And they're intentionally looking for a co-working operator to come in because they're going to be right across the street from a variety of missing middle housing type, all the way from starting, they have single family options, but then they have apartments and smaller units as well. And they're seeing that need to incorporate it. So I'm happy to talk to anybody.
Sounds great. Well, there you go. Your inbox is about to get flooded, hopefully by co-working people who are interested in getting involved and working more with you. Megan, thank you so much for spending your time with us today, for sharing your insights. And I'm almost certain this won't be the last time you're on the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Hector.